Good morning and welcome to another practice session. Let's just warm up with a first third. Begin. So we're going to do some more work on separation. This is kind of the crux of the art and something that you need to practice and return to over and over again. Ben Lowe, that's pretty much all he ever did with us. Baton, pretty much the same thing. His famous words, hold it there a sec. So this is, we haven't spent a lot of time until the last while, really looking at this deeply, but you need to keep coming back to it because it's really an important aspect. The name of the art is the art of maximum separation of empty and full, yin and yang. The martial art, that's the Chuan gives it the martial aspect, but that's really what we're doing here is understanding the difference between empty and full and yin and yang and finding that balance inside us all the time. So we're going to do some more of that. I'd like to start by working on something that I introduced at the end of the Tuesday night class, and it's important for when you're doing posture holding. So take a 70-30 with me and sit deeply into it. Make sure that your front leg is holding you up, your rear leg is releasing and hanging down toward the ground. You have a good connection at the bottoms of your feet, and it can travel all the way up and down through you because you've got open channels inside. Now sit down a little more deeply, because chances are you're not sitting as deeply as you could. But you need to still have a little bit of space. So now push yourself to the absolute bottom of where you can be. Now you can't move. That is not where you want to hold your postures. Come up 1/8 of an inch from there. It should still put real work out. You have to actually do the work. It's not just sipping tea and hanging out. It's work. You feel it. But you've got room to move. There's a little give. Change legs. Look for it on the other side. Sit into a good 70-30. You may need to take a stance that isn't the one that you're used to. You might be used to a stance that's too long. You might also be used to a stance that's too short. So find a place where you can, if you're going to sit deeply, you will have a longer stance. So go ahead and find the right place for your body to sit deeply into your stance. You're in the center of your stance. Your feet have good connection through the ground. Your front leg is holding you up. Your rear leg is releasing down to the ground. Give yourself a little more dropping, sitting down. Ben used to say to us, "You know my name, Ben Low." And he would come and push us down. But you don't want to go to what Maggie called the teeth gritting place. So put yourself even lower till you get to the place where you just can't move from there at all. That's not where you want to hold the posture. Release just a little bit so that there's a little bit of give. So rest your legs a second. This is Maggie's notion of structural root versus functional root. Structural root is where you hold your postures. That is where your structure is the right shape. It's deeply in the shape, but you can still move from it. The functional root is that last little bit of give that you still have when you're in your structural root. And when you're holding postures and it's time to move on to the next one, the way that you move on is by releasing and hitting that functional root so that it can move you and start things changing again. Because holding postures is not natural. Flow is what's natural. But we need to hold the postures to know where the flow goes and to figure out what little problems we might have. If I never stop and hold the posture, I might not realize that I'm sticking my hip out and rolling to the outside of my leg. But when I hold the posture for very long, this starts to become a big red alarm. And so I work to figure out, well, what am I doing that's missing? And get things more connected in a better shape and all of that. So spend the time when we stop in the postures. I'm only going to stop us in the final postures first. Do spend the time to feel it. Feel what it feels like. You know what good Tai Chi is. If you have any questions, you can always ask us. But do try to feel where you're in a better shape. Make any adjustments you need to get yourself in a good Tai Chi stance. And then give it your all without pushing yourself to a place that you are stuck. And then when it's time to move on, you move on by releasing, not by being so stuck down there that the only thing you can do is push yourself off. You want to always give into the ground. This is the transferring the weight along the shallow walk, all that stuff that we talk about all the time. That's what you're looking for. You only have one leg at a time. So be very conscientious as you're shifting into your final postures that you're aware of the moment that it goes from one leg to the other. So let's just shift back and forth a few times. Take a 70-30. Come into your back leg, because I think it's a little easier to feel it from there. And you're sitting in your back leg, all your weight's in your back leg, your back foot is connected to the ground, you're releasing the front one, and then give in just a little bit. That starts you down the shallow walk, and you're right when you get down to the bottom of the walk, the other leg takes over, and now you can release the rear leg so that you're in your front leg. Same thing happens going back. Give into the full leg. That starts you heading down into the walk, and then your back leg takes over and your front leg releases. So you just do this a few times and notice the moment the other leg takes over. This is important. This is separating the weight just as much as being able to float an empty foot. It's harder to tell what a 70-30 separation means. This is what it means. Sit into your full leg to start you sliding back down along the walk, and back leg takes over, front leg releases, and you keep moving back until you reach 100%. Change feet so you get it on both legs. Start in the back, sitting down. The walk is bringing you forward. You hit the bottom of the walk, and there's a moment that the other leg takes over, and then your rear leg releases, releases, releases as you complete the 70-30. Your final 70-30, you're in the center of your stance. Your rear heel has a good connection to the ground. You haven't lost it. You're really letting that back leg hang all the way so that there's a clear connection all the way through around the foot. Your front leg is holding you up and supporting you. You're in the center of your stance, and this is separating. This is the leg you're relying on, and this is the leg you're releasing. When it's time to move, you have to release through the leg you're relying on so that then the other leg can take over. So rest your legs. And we're going to work on this in the first third. You know, I keep thinking, well, maybe we should work some other part of the form. And the fact is, the first third is really challenging, but I think you can do it. Once we get into something like repulse monkey and you want to float your empty foot, chances are you're going to end up doing this to bring it up. So it's just a lot more challenging to do this kind of work in the rest of the form. Go ahead and do that on your own. Check it out. You might want to do it in front of a mirror so that you see if you're distorting, because the most important thing is not whether or not your foot comes up off the ground. It's that you've got the right shape. And so I don't want you to distort in order to get some external effect of emptying your leg. So let's just go over this for a second. As you stand here in your back leg, your front leg is empty, turn toward it, let the sit bone drop, your butt cheek softens, your lower back softens, your knee is buoyant, and that helps you reposition your empty foot. And the alternative is you're standing here and we say, check your empty leg, and you do this. So notice the difference. This is not checking an empty leg. This is how the empty foot is checked. Nothing else should change. And Ben Lowe used to tell us that your belly should be soft like tofu, but not that hard American tofu, soft Chinese tofu. So do it on your other leg too. Standing here, all the weight's in your back leg, your front leg is letting go, your belly is like soft Chinese tofu. And as you turn toward that leg, the sit bone drops, the butt cheek drops, the lower back relaxes, the knee is buoyant, and nobody but you really knows if the foot has come up off the ground. It's not a big thing that you lift. So notice that difference and try to find what you need to separate the weight. You can hold on to something if you need to practice this on your own, but do work toward this. So now let's do some first third work and hold some postures and check it out. So right away at the beginning, standing here, everything is loose and relaxed, your body is upright, and you're going to drop right through the right leg. As you do that, the left one becomes buoyant. Step and shift, releasing. Other leg takes over. And stand up. Stand here a moment, just feeling this posture. This is a fundamental standing posture. Go ahead and check your feet, make sure they're parallel, shoulder width distance. Your knees are slightly bent. Lower back is relaxed. Head top is suspended. Chest is soft. Belly soft like Chinese tofu. And lift hands. Continue. Releasing to shift the weight. You only have one leg. And hold it at the final posture. Go ahead and check your stance. Fix it if you need to. Make sure your left foot's pointing straight ahead. Get your right foot angled in a way that you can feel the whole outer edge of your foot, that you're not using it to hold you up. Lower back is relaxed, butt cheek is soft, belly is soft, chest is soft. Hanging out, using your front leg to hold you up. Sitting down, you know his name, bend low. Really work. But make sure that only one leg is holding you up. The other one is releasing. So you don't want to go too low. And once you're standing here, then you can bring in some cross-balance awareness. If you have your legs doing the right thing, see if you can feel how that's balanced. Front leg to right hand. Left hand is light. It balances the hanging rear leg. Spend time really getting yourself into a good posture. Feel what it feels like inside. Breathing, relaxing, and we'll move on. You only have one leg. When you step, you still only have one leg. As you shift, you trade which leg you're relying on. Hang out here. Fix your stance if you need to. Check it out. Softening, relaxing, relying on your front leg, letting the rear leg go. As you stand here and you get more comfortable with the position, feel how the full front leg is balanced with the back hand, the left hand. The right hand is light. It balances your rear leg, which is hanging. The butt cheek is soft. Your lower back is relaxed. Your belly and chest are also relaxed. Just giving in to ground, keeping yourself upright, letting your body be an open conduit between heaven and earth. Working hard, but leaving a little room so that when we move on, which we will do in a second, you can release. There's some place to release into your functional root. And continue. Now your rear leg has taken over. It's balanced by your front hand. Let your front leg hang. Release your lower back, your butt cheek, chest and belly. Everything softens. Body is upright. And continue. Turn without putting any weight into that front leg. I'm going to stop you in the other corner. Make sure that you haven't shifted your weight into your front leg yet. And then we'll turn more. You still haven't put any weight into your front leg. If you want to check it, go on and check it. Come back, still relying on your rear leg, and then in a moment, the front leg takes over and your rear leg releases. Get that feeling back. Sitting on your front leg, releasing your rear leg. And continue. Release to start the movement back. Rear leg takes over. Giving in. Weight shifts. Underground. Front leg takes over. Back to your 70-30. And let your rear leg hang. Really give it your all. Sit down. Only use one leg. Breathe. Relax. I'm going to give you a break in a second. So just give it your best shot. And then take a break. That warms you right up, huh? So one of the things that I mentioned that I want to bring up in detail is where your back foot is, because we're going to keep going in and out of 70-30s, and I want to make sure that you feel where the back foot needs to land. We say somewhere between 30 and 45 degree angle for the back foot. I want you to feel what happens when you get it right versus when it's a little too much toward the front or a little too open. So first, find a good place. Find a good place for yourself to sit. Now, one of the qualities of the back leg is that it opens out right out of the hip socket. The two thighs are at slightly different angles. They're not both facing the same way. If you do that, it's going to bring your feet almost parallel. So go ahead and turn in your back leg so that you don't have to make it parallel, but make it be a smaller angle so that it's almost parallel. Feel what that does. Feel how it affects the lower back and your ability to relax it. It kind of gets stuck. This is very difficult to release all of this when your foot is at too narrow of an angle. Now, give it the other, and notice that once you open it too wide, it's like splitting you apart, and you can't really, you have to struggle to try and square your hips, and you still can't quite do it. You're being pulled in two different directions. So can you feel how when you open that angle, even just a little bit more than is your right amount, it starts pulling you toward the back. You can't release that leg anymore because it's pulling you away from your front leg. So rest your legs. That's the condition that Baton would call 1 foot on the dock, 1 foot on the boat. You don't want to get split apart like that. So you need to find that feeling. The only way that your rear leg is going to be able to hang is because you've got it at the right angle, correct angle. That if you bring it too far in, even the littlest bit, you can't release it anymore. And if you open it too far, you also can't release it. So if you're having trouble releasing your back leg, one of the things that could be holding you back is the angle of it. I've come undone. Lee's going to fix my mic. Thank you. So let's do a little more. We'll start at push and move on. And do become aware of that feeling of where your back foot is landing. Okay, so we're starting out cold, so find your place. Sit down, center of your stance, rear foot at a good angle that allows you to release it, giving in to the ground, but not so much that you're stuck. And we're going to move on to single whip. So start by releasing into your full leg. That starts moving you back. At some point, the back leg takes over. You're releasing the front leg. That allows you to keep turning. And other leg takes over. Now your left leg is hanging. All this happens off your full right leg. Notice the moment your front leg takes over. Go ahead and adjust yourself if you're not in a great 70-30. Put yourself where you can hang out. Your right arm is going to balance your left leg. So really feel that fullness running through the whole body. Professor Chung said this is the most auspicious posture to hold. So get yourself in a position where you can hang out. Figure out what you need to adjust so that your back leg is hanging, your front leg is holding you up, and everything else is letting go. Breathing, relaxing. Check to see that your hips are square, that your belly button, your nose, and your front foot are all pointing in the same direction. This is easy to end up a little bit open. You want to make sure you're square. And it can be hard to let go of that back leg. Readjust yourself until you can, holding yourself up on the front leg. This is not easy work, so give it the time it takes. And we'll move on. Giving in to start your movement. Fully relying on your left leg. This is very open on that leg, so make sure your knee is tracking your toe. One of the problems with holding postures is if you don't do it right, you could hurt your knees. So make sure, feel the bottom of your foot. Feel it carefully. Get your connection through that foot. Then you can worry about how to release the other side. Hanging out here, your left palm relates to your right elbow. Your right extended hand balances your left full leg. There's no weight in your right leg. Make sure that you're not holding yourself up with it. And let's go on, giving in. Stepping out. Notice the moment that the weight shifts to the other leg. Holding it here. Feel the bottom of your right foot. Make sure that the knee is tracking the toes. From there, you can find a way to release the rear leg. Your left hand is balancing the weight in the right leg. Your left arm is light. Your right arm is light. Body is upright. Dantian is just wherever it needs to be. It's somewhere toward the corner. But your attention is frontal. And giving in to the right leg to start the movement. Your left hand is going to balance the weight in the right leg. Stand here a moment. Your right knee is tracking your right toes. Your left foot is completely empty. Releasing your lower back, letting go of the butt cheek, letting the knee float. Resting on the ball, but not with weight. Hang out here for 1 sec more, and I'm going to give you another break. And take a break. I lost track of the time. Time to trade? I think so. Yeah, so this is the good, hard work. And even when life is really crazy, when you start doing this, you're not worrying about anything else that's going on because you're pretty busy just trying to see what's happening in your body and keeping your act together. So when in doubt, hold some postures. Here comes Lee.
Okay, so more. Let's review this again. This feeling of really releasing the front leg. So take a back stance. Front leg is out in front of you. You know what you want to do in order to let it float is to change the balance of the body so that it floats effortlessly off the ground. Beth already talked through this, but a lot of times what you'll want to do is you'll want to start out facing slightly to the corner of your back foot, and as you want to bring the front foot off the ground, come back towards the front, let the sit bone on the front leg drop and the knee float. So you've got two directions going on at once. You've got the sit bone dropping while the knee is coming up. And I'm facing the side so that you can see the difference. The other thing that happens is you lift them both. When you lift both the sit bone and the knee, right? So you really want to have the two of them going in different directions. Knee floats, sit bone drops. Right? We often talk about the weighted elbows, the way that the elbows hang, the shoulders sink, the elbows hang. The knees are the analog of the elbows. The role the elbows play for the arm, the knees play for the leg, and they're the bottom, the elbows are on the top. The elbows hang, the knees are buoyant and floating. So you want to really make sure you've got that feeling. When your leg is straight, when I do a straight leg here, then when I lift it, the knee has no buoyancy and everything comes up together. So, when we first introduce separation to you, we're delighted if somebody can get their foot off the ground, even if it involves lifting. If you've been playing along with us in these videos for a while, you're ready to do the next level. If this is the first serious dive you're taking into this kind of separation work, then file what we're saying now away and come back to it in 6 months or 6 years or whatever. But really try to have that yin-yang balance between sit bone and knee. So the two of them go different directions when the foot comes off the ground, rather than the two of them going the same direction. The two of them going the same direction is another manifestation of double weighting. So you want them to go different directions. So work this on both sides. Stand on a back stance. Stand with your waist slightly to the corner. Let yourself come towards the front. Let the sit bone of the empty leg feel like it's dropping. Let the knee of the empty leg feel like it's buoyant and floating. And let that lift the leg off the ground. So the leg floats off the ground. You don't force it to lift. Now lift, and notice when you lift, both the sit bone and the knee go up. And my hip too. The hip will be a side effect of this, that it will raise. When I lift both, the hip will raise also. And see how it's throwing me off balance? So I need that sit bone drops, the knee floats. That's how I separate. So when you're doing this, I think I did it on both sides. If I didn't, while I'm talking a little bit more, do it on both sides yourself. When we're doing this, part of what you're trying to do is you're trying to get that empty leg to really relax and release. So the empty leg is not being pulled into the pelvis. When the direction on the empty leg is into the pelvis like this, then you're going to tighten it and you're going to lift. The empty leg is hanging away from the pelvis. And as it does that, your mobile body rebalances so that it can float off the ground. So you really want to get this feeling. Do it on the other side. I don't care about lifting the leg. What I want you to do is really be on that back leg and feel that the front leg is hanging away from the pelvis. All of the muscle fibers are lengthening. The leg, if inside the leg with your mind, you're reaching through an open channel to the ground, rather than the leg being pulled into the pelvis. Now do that. Pull the leg into the pelvis. Notice what it does here on the quad. It tightens. Notice what it does to your butt cheek. And then that's where, when you lift, everything lifts. So you need to have that feeling of it moving down along the leg. I'm going to do it on the other side for a second. Releasing down through the leg. It's getting longer. It's moving away from the pelvis. And that lets it float. Even when it's floating, it's lengthening. Versus lifting, where everything shortens, the leg gets pulled into the pelvis, you're pulling it off the ground. You release, the sit bone drops, the knee floats. So that's what you need to have for all the 100% postures. You need to have it in the 70-30s too. We'll come back and look at those in a second, but we've got some 100% coming right up as we keep going in the form. So we'll start from shouldering so that we get to go into white crane, because white crane has this in spades. So shouldering. Okay, into the front foot. As you're moving here, you're moving away from your rear leg. Let it reposition as you come into the final posture. And really make sure you're 100%. Feel that the leg is hanging away from the pelvis. When you're going to check your weight, you're going to let the sit bone drop and the knee buoy. And that's what's going to let that foot float off the ground. Effortlessly, belly-like soft Chinese bean curd, not hard American tofu. Okay, continue. Let the hand drop, the waist turns, front hand drops, rear hand folds, front foot steps, and shift. brush knee. Same thing is happening in your rear leg. It's hanging away from the pelvis. Front leg is holding you up. Okay, gather into the front leg. Let the rear knee float. That lets the foot come off the ground. Replace it, moving away from the front leg. Stretch the rubber band, release the rubber band. Play guitar. Make sure that your left leg is hanging away from you here. No tightness in the quad, no tightness in the butt cheek. Everything is soft. And now when you float that leg, let the sit bone drop, let the knee buoy. Let the leg rebalance just off the ground, width of a sheet of paper. And to the next brush knee. Turning, front hand drops, rear hand folds, front foot steps, shift, brush knee. Sitting down, we're going to take a break in a second, so give this a good, solid effort. Releasing the rear leg. Finding tension in the body, letting it go. And take a break. So when we're doing this posture holding, it's really easy for the result to be that you build tension, especially when you're like, damn it, I am gonna make it through this. So while you're doing this, keep finding the places where you're tight and letting them go. The thing is, if you have something and you hold it and you let it go, it falls. I often do this with a book, but I don't need to go over and get a book. Right? If I hold something and I let it go, it falls down to the ground. We're in a gravity well. We're on a planet. There's a big-ass planet straight down there that's pulling everything towards its center. When you let go, things sink and fall. So that happens in your body. While you're standing there, you'll find that you're holding tension in the body. And when you let it go, you're going to have discernible external sinking and releasing. Just like if I let something go, it goes down. Now, if I'm holding a book in the air and I want it to go down to the floor, I don't have to push it down to the floor. I just let go and it'll fall to the floor. Same thing with your body. When you notice that you're holding tension, you don't have to push that tension down because that doesn't get rid of it. What you do is let go and it'll melt off of you. So when we're doing this posture holding, it's a continual process of letting go. Now, it may become intense enough that you can't quite handle it, and so you space out. You try to go away so that you can ignore the intensity of the moment. If that happens, stop and take a break. Because this is not a disassociative process. This is not a process about ignoring what's happening. It's a process of being very, very aware of what's happening in your body and using the slow work and the long times in a posture to really check it all out and continually release, release, release. And as you release, you'll feel it going down. Now, when we're doing Tai Chi, there's an up also, but you don't do the up. You just do the down. You just continue to release, and then you'll find with time that the earth pushes back and there's an up coming back up. But you don't do the up. You just do the down, and the doing of the down is letting go. So when we're holding these postures, you'll find that you're uncomfortable. That discomfort arises because of tension. You become uncomfortable in the places you're holding. I'm holding, and this hurts. So what I have to do is let it go. Let it go. Continually letting go. When you first let go, you'll see it physically. You'll see everything give. You're not done. There's still more. So you want to continue letting go internally and feeling that flow down. The flow down is all over the outside. Anything that comes back up through the inside. But it can only do that if you have an open channel. If I tighten my leg and I'm holding it, I'll never get anything coming back up. So I have to be continually releasing the leg. Continually releasing the leg and letting it go down. And introspect and look carefully at the inside of the quad. It's very likely you're still holding on a little bit there. So find those muscles and release them. Check out your butt. It's likely that you're holding something in your butt cheek. So find that and release it. Feel your thigh. You've got big muscles all over the thigh, and they may have a tendency to hold on. So keep releasing them. Continuing to release all of this. That's what we're doing in the holding postures. So let's do that little segment again, because it's got those nice 100%. Actually, I guess we ought to take it from single whip, so we do it on both legs. And then I want to talk about the 70-30s, and then we'll do some more. So, single whip, in your front leg, rear leg is releasing. Left hand is light, right shoulder is releasing. Right hand is full, balancing the full front leg. Holding this posture. When discomfort arises, let your mind in there. Find what it is that you're holding and release it. It'll go down. You don't have to push it down. On to lift hands, turning, moving away from the rear leg. Let the rear leg rebalance, sit bone drops, knee floats so you can step and lift hands. Really feel your right sit bone is dropping so that your right knee can be coming up. Right? Standing here, right sit bone drops, right knee buoys. That's how I'm able to pick that foot up. No lifting, no both coming up. So continuing to let go of the right leg. Turn, moving away from the right leg. Hands drop, and then the foot comes back with a buoyant knee. Let that knee float a little bit more to step and shift, shoulder strike. Releasing tension, letting it melt off you. White crane. Moving away from your rear foot, it gets longer. The left knee buoys and the foot can step, white crane. Letting the sit bone drop, letting the knee float. That's what lifts the leg, not a double weighted hip and knee lift. Floating, sit bone drops, knee floats. Continue, brush knee. Feeling the rear leg release. Finding any tension in the chest and shoulders. Letting it melt off you. Gathering into the front foot. Shift, moving away from the front leg. Allow the left knee to float, the left sit bone sinks. That lets you move the foot, no weight. Keep releasing, keep letting go through the left leg. So the leg is hanging away from you. With your mind through the center of the leg, reaching down to the heel. And the leg is empty. When we turn, make sure you move away from this leg. Don't bring it with you. Turn, lengthening the leg. Front hand drops, rear hand folds, front foot steps because of the buoyant knee. Shift, rear leg, front leg moving away from the rear leg. We'll take a break after this posture. So give it A good feeling. Okay, take a break. So I said I'd talk about the 70-30s. This is the other piece of this. And, this is like a lot of the separation work we do, where you're really trying to be separated in the back, so you're at the edge, and you're really, you're far out. You can let the leg float, you get to the other edge, you come back. You have to separate inside, too. And so in the 70-30s, you really have to let that rear leg go. And so this is what Beth's been talking about making sure the lower back relaxes, the butt cheek relaxes. Make sure to pay attention to the front of the quad. It needs to be hanging. And you want to have a feeling that this empty leg in your mind, through the inside of it, you're reaching down to the ground. It's not pushing up through the leg. And so this is, we talk about these directions, but you really want to get them. The rear leg is like this. This is my rear leg, and it's hanging. This is my pelvis, and it's hanging out of the pelvis. So the direction of the rear leg is hanging down. It's hanging down. So if I let go, if my rear leg disconnected from my pelvis, it would fall. So if I was here, and my rear leg disconnects from the pelvis, the rear leg would fall down to the ground. It's not pushing up into the pelvis. So a leg that's pushing up into the pelvis, if I disconnect, the leg keeps going up. It's a leg that's hanging down from the pelvis, so it falls. The other thing that happens is people don't have a feeling of lengthening here, and so the leg is just there. It's just there. It's not connected to the ground. It's just like part of me. I want it to feel like it's going down. We sometimes say this is the octopus tentacle reaching down to the coral sands below. So the octopus tentacle has no bones. It can't hold you up. This rear leg is not a supportive leg. If I put my weight in it, it buckles. It's an octopus tentacle. It doesn't support me. But the octopus tentacle has little octopus suckers on the bottom of it. And those octopus suckers are connected to the coral reef down underneath me. So the leg doesn't just collapse and come with me. This is the error of losing the heel. There's a lengthening through the leg down to the ground. So take 70-30s. We'll do both sides. And make sure you're really in the front leg. The front leg is pushing up into the pelvis. The front leg is coming into the pelvis, and my pelvis is sitting on top of it. If you took my body off of my front leg, it's still there going up. My rear leg is hanging down out of the pelvis. If you let go, the leg goes down. And I've got my tripod, my 3 octopus suckers on the bottom of my foot connected to those coral sands. They're down there. So the whole leg is lengthening and reaching to the ground, not shortening and pushing up into the leg. So really feel that. Really feel that there's nothing being done in that leg to support you. And the motion in the leg is down through the leg towards the bubbling well at the bottom of the foot. It's a long leg. That bubbling well is a long way away. So you really have to reach for it. And change sides. Do the other side. Octopus tentacle, suckers on the coral reef, lengthening, everything letting go. Not a pushing up. The front leg is pushing up, the rear leg is hanging down. 2 different directions, up and down. This one is coming up, that one is going down. This one is coming up, that one is going down. Double weighted, both coming up, both pushing up. You sit 50-50, so you're using both legs. Now both of your legs are shorter and they're both coming into the pelvis. So get on the front leg and let the rear relax. You'll feel it across the front of the quad, the hip joint here. You'll feel it in your butt. You'll feel it in your thigh. And you'll be able to reach the outer edge of the rear heel. Great. So that has to be the case in every 70-30. You need to really feel that. To get separation in a 70-30, the 2 legs have 2 different jobs. They don't both have the same job. Now, little asterisk, There's two postures in the form where the two legs do have the same job. And so your homework is to find those. There's one posture in the form where you have two back legs, and they're both hanging away from the pelvis. And there's one posture in the form where you have two front legs, and they're both pushing up into the pelvis. Every other posture besides those two is not like that. You should be able to find those two. And if you think they're any of the postures in, say, grass sparrow's tail, or brush knee and the punch, you're wrong. So, all the 70-30s, not any of the 70-30s. I'll give you another clue. It's not any of the 100%. So, all of those, the two legs are doing different things, and you want to get this two different directions. Standing on one leg, the leg I'm standing on is coming up into the pelvis. The other leg is moving away. We'll often talk about that leg being longer. Standing on one leg is coming up into the pelvis. The other leg is moving away. Even in ones like this, where you're kicking, coming into the pelvis, moving out from the pelvis. So I'm thinking out to my toes. I'm not pulling this in. Even here, I'm thinking long into the knee. I'm not bringing it in. So they're always going those two different directions. And that'll help you with the release in the legs. Now, this gets complicated when you do things like white crane, where you start out here and you're doing all of this work off of one leg. So there's a lot of action happening in that leg. As you find this, now I'm going to use the front leg. I'm going to let the rear leg move away. This one's coming into the pelvis. That one's moving away from the pelvis. You'll be able to figure out what's going on in something like the white crane transition. So let's finish up the first third in gory detail. And then we'll come back and do another first third just for fun and just to actually reap the benefit of this work. So from the second brush knee. So standing on the left leg, the right leg is moving away from your pelvis. The left leg is coming up into it. This one is supporting. This one is hanging away. Sit back, releasing into that front leg, underground into the rear leg. Release puts you down, underground, into the front leg. Now the front leg is supporting you. The rear leg is getting long. Let that long leg swing. Release, underground, into the right leg. Now the rear leg is moving away from you. And as you start to turn, the rear leg gets really long. And then let it step. Release to start the shift, underground. Now the front leg is supporting you. The rear leg is getting long. And stand here in the punch. Feel that rear leg as the octopus tentacle. Feel it reaching down to the coral sand. Long. Front of the quad is relaxed. Butt cheek is relaxed. Thigh is relaxed. And you've got your suckers installed on the tripod. So you can really feel the ground down there. Reaching. It's a long way away. You have to go that way. Other leg, front leg is holding you up. Down into the front leg more. Rear leg gets even longer. And release, shifting underground. Now you're going to move away from your left leg. Now you're standing on the left leg, moving away from the right leg. And hold it here. Feel that right leg lengthening out of the pelvis. Sitting back, moving away from the left leg. So the left leg is long. And as you turn, the left leg keeps lengthening, keeps lengthening, keeps lengthening, keeps lengthening, keeps lengthening. Sink underground into the left leg. Moving away from your right leg. Moving away from your right leg. Step. Sit down. This is a deep posture. And now stand up. Letting everything go. Shift to the left. Left leg is right leg is lengthening. Shift to the right. Right leg is supporting the pelvis. Left leg is lengthening. Heels come together and stand up. Great. So Jane used to do this thing when we were standing in class and holding postures. And she'd come around and she'd grab people's butts. And she'd say, no tight asses. She'd really want our butt cheeks soft rather than held. We wouldn't grab your butts, even if we were in person. And I'm certainly not going to reach through the camera and grab your butt. But at home, really feel the butt. It's easy to have. These are big muscles. That's why our butts stick out. There's big muscles there. And so, if you wish your butt was smaller, don't try to suck it in. That just makes it tight. Let it go and, eat less, make your butt smaller. But let it really be soft, like Chinese tofu, not hard American tofu. So your belly is soft, your butt is soft. We hold tension in both of these, letting them go. And when you're in that 70-30, really feel the octopus tentacle of the rear leg. This is critical for separating. Now, there's multiple aspects to this. We're primarily working on the support, the stability. So this is a separating of empty and full. And we're paying attention to what we call the line of stability, the line that is supporting you. There's another line, which is the line of action, which makes things happen. And that can go through either leg. It's not that it always has to go through the other leg from the one that's supporting you. There's times when it goes through the leg that's supporting you. There's times when it goes through the other leg. But it goes through the leg on the inside. So if you tighten your rear leg in brush knee, the power of the move comes from my rear leg through my body out through my hand. If my rear leg is tight, that doesn't happen. So I have to have the rear leg open so that I can access the ground through that open channel. I can tap it and it can come through the inside of the leg out to the hand. That's there. So that's line of action. We've talked about that. You'll start finding it as you work on this, but only if you have your line of stability. Only if you're really truly using one leg at a time to hold you up, and the other is empty. The emptying leg, let yourself move away from it. Let it get longer. Let it release. You have to have that. And then you can start working on this action, and there's, of course, tons of complication there. But you really have to have this. So, as Beth said at the beginning, this is basically all Ben ever did, and most of what Baton did. We asked Maggie about this one time, and she said, yeah, you have to do that, but I don't make people stand in postures because most people's alignment isn't good enough, and I don't want to do an external thing and have them distorting and thinking they're doing the right thing. So she said, I don't do that till later. There was one time we were in Sword, and we were holding Bird's Return to the Forest, and we were just holding that forever, and the rest of the students weren't used to doing that kind of holding work, and they stopped, and she was like, you're a bunch of wusses. If I was Ben Low, you'd all still be standing there. By that time in Sword, she thought the people who were doing this should have good enough alignment to be able to truly work on the separation. So we're this weird melange, stew, gumbo, mix of everything. So we'll work on some of this separation work, but make sure when you're doing it that you keep your alignment right, that you keep your shape right. The shape is first, then you can work on this stuff. But you have to work on this, because if you don't, then Maggie will call you a bunch of wusses, and we wouldn't want that to happen. So let's do one more first third. We will not stop every place, but we'll go slow. And while you're doing this, work on all the stuff that we've been working on. Work on the clear separation between one leg and the other. Really have the back leg of a 70-30, an open conduit down to the ground, your octopus tentacle, so that the mysterious it can come back up in it. Really pay attention to your front leg, that when you're separating in it, you're not lifting it, you're letting it float. And if you've got anything left, watch the line of stability in the hands and the lightness in the hands. So one more, just for fun. I actually, even though I always promise I won't talk, I really won't talk during this one. Except to say, go ahead. Do sit down. That wasn't really me talking, that's just reminding you. So whenever you're doing this class, if you really do it, you're going to feel it for the rest of the day. And there is this thing called delayed onset of muscle soreness, DOMS. And so what that means is a lot of times when you work really hard like this, you'll actually feel it the most the next day or 2 days later. So if you wake up tomorrow morning and your legs are really killing you, don't be surprised. That's a normal thing. That's just the way it works. Doing this kind of work is difficult, but it gives you the space mentally and the time while you're doing it to really look through the whole body. So this should be very productive work. It's almost November 3rd. I want to remind everybody who's watching this, the importance of voting. And please, if you haven't already voted, do whatever it takes where you are to vote. Yeah, and do it in a way that'll get your ballot counted where you are. And do that standing on strong legs connected to the ground with the top of your head connected to heaven and your mind in your dantian, and go forth really feeling that.